Hello, good rainy morning, everyone from Trondheim. Welcome to the Filipino Helping Society in Norway, FHS DG Seminar. I'm Amor, an FHS volunteer and a member of FHS Team Newbie in Norway. Helping me tackle the topic this afternoon or this morning is Renz, a fellow FHS volunteer and Newbie in Norway member. Hello, Renz.
Yes, hello. Good morning. It's very sunny here
Oh,
in
I envy you.
yeah, it's very sunny here in Lillestrøm. So I'm hoping it will be like that for the rest of the day. And thanks for the introduction, Amor. So, hello to all of our viewers. I hope you're ready for our very informative Digi seminar today. But before we start, a short introduction about the Filipino Helping Society in Norway. So, the Filipino Helping Society in Norway, or FHS, is a volunteer organization that provides information drives and awareness campaigns to benefit and help migrant groups in Norway gather the information they need for navigating life in Norway. And in today's DG seminar, we'll discuss working environment and employment in Norway.
Yes, and this is in line with the Labor Day celebration at the beginning of May. We at Team Newbie in Norway wanted to learn more about Norway's work environment and culture, and learn how an immigrant could find a job in Norway, and share tips on how to get help if a migrant worker finds themselves in difficult situations with their employers. We've got a summary of today's discussion on our screen right now, so tune in and get your pens out for taking notes, dear viewers. But before we begin, we would like to emphasize that we at FHS are here to guide, help, and hold your hand to the best of our capabilities and provide information that may help you integrate into Norwegian society. We are not affiliated with local government agencies such as SUDI, NAV, Arbeidstilsynet, IMDi, and others. However, everything that will be presented today is based on information from reputable sources. In this regard, some information may or may not be applicable to you. Therefore, your discretion is necessary.
Yes. So we have done our best to do our research, and I'm very excited for our discussion today, Amor. Especially technicalities like how much is the salary rate in Norway and so on.
Mm,
Yes.
right, right. I agree. I'm very much looking forward to it as a skilled worker myself here in Norway.
Yes, so I think that's what attracts a lot of immigrants to come to Norway. The good
Mm,
salary package in
they say
Norway.
so. Let's see later.
We will see. That is right.
Yeah.
So let's start by painting a picture of the current Norwegian labor market. So Uh, Norway is a country with a high employment level. Wage gap and employment difference are not that big, and a high level of the country has a high level of prosperity that
Mm,
provides security and opportunities for people living and coming to the country. Unemployment rate has been significantly lower in Norway compared to the EU. However, the country struggles with filling positions in the technical and health sectors. Skilled labor shortages have become more acute, and occupations that require vocational or higher education are among the most difficult to fill.
that's interesting to hear, Renz. I think that's how a number of immigrants come into Norway through skilled worker visas. However, I think we'll discuss that later.
Yes, somewhat.
Mm,
What could also be interesting for those who want to come to Norway for work is information about the industries and professions that have the highest vacancy rate right now, aka who's hiring right now
mhm.
in Norway. So, based on our research, according to Norway's National Statistical Institute, Statistisk Sentralbyrå, these are the sectors with the highest job vacancy rates in the first quarter of this year. The first one is administrative and support service activities. These include jobs as office admin workers, business support workers like building or equipment maintenance workers, and recruitment workers or HR. Next on the list is residential care activities. Professionals needed in Norway now are nurses, personal care workers, social workers, caregivers, and assistant nurses. Next is information and communication industry. Jobs in these sector include media and publishing workers, such as journalists and editors, network engineers, telecommunications technicians, customer service representatives, and software and IT professionals. For the next one, we have the arts, entertainment, and recreation industry. The positions here include performing arts artists and workers, workers in museums, libraries, archives, and historical sites, and media production workers. And next up is real estate activities. Ooh, it seems like a lot of people are
Mm,
buying real estate in Norway, maybe.
yeah.
So that means real estate agents, brokers, property managers, and those involved in the sale, purchase, and rental of real estate. These have a high vacancy rate in Norway right now. And finally, these three industries were tied. We have construction, human health activities, and accommodation and food service activities. Jobs in these industries include construction workers, healthcare professionals such as midwives, psychotherapists, medical laboratory workers, and hotel and restaurant workers.
I didn't expect that administrative work in offices would be so high on the list. I mean, I'm genuinely surprised. Um, Administrative has topped the list. I thought it would only be like healthcare workers, IT, engineers. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. I was quite surprised myself, but I think, overall around the world, the lack of healthcare workers can be felt. And in this data, we can see that there are two industries in need of healthcare workers. That's in residential homes and also in the healthcare system, which here is called human health activities.
I see that. How about the salary rents? How much do average employees in Norway earn?
Well, we don't have the data for each job we have listed here, but we'll discuss wages in Norway and how to find out if you are earning a good salary for your position later on in the program. But in general, the average monthly income in Norway is 59,370 370 kroners or 5,937 euros. The lowest average monthly income per region falls at 50,950 kroners, while the highest average monthly income is at 63,860 kroners, which is in the country's capital of Oslo.
Okay, I think it seems like it's still higher even compared than what's on the website um, by the UDE. Yeah.
Mhm.
Being in the capital, it makes sense. Yeah, it's speaking of the capital is usually the first landing point for many immigrants coming to Norway. Now that Renz has painted us a picture of the Norwegian labor market, we'll now look into the flow of migrants into Norway through employment.
I think that's a very fitting topic for our audience. Amor, fire away.
Thank you, Renz. Labor immigrants bring essential skills to the Norwegian labor market and help meet the demand for labor in many sectors in Norway. Norway is part of labor agreements between the Nordic countries and the EEA, which allows for free movement of laborers within member countries. That's why citizens of EEA countries find it easier to migrate to Norway for work. For labor immigrants from third countries like us, we must apply for a residence permit according to the rules in the Immigration Act. Residence permits for labor immigrants are granted based on their skills and employment in Norway. Most labor immigrants from third countries are skilled workers or seasonal workers.
I'm kind of jealous of citizens of the EEA. They
Mm,
don't have to go through the laborious processes we
right.
citizens from the Philippines have to go through. I know every time I have to think about processing something with UDE, like my
Mm.
heart just starts beating. Yeah.
Not
Anyway,
only that, you have to process between the UDE and the polity, the
yes.
SUA.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you don't talk directly with UDE. You have to go
Yeah.
through polity, and the idea of going to the police station as an
Right.
immigrant, it's not the best feeling.
Right. Right.
Yes, but going back, Amor, how can, for example, since you mentioned we need to go through a process to come to Norway, how can, for example, someone from the Philippines come to Norway for work?
Well, Renz, if they are a graduate of a vocational training program, completed an education or degree in the Philippines, or has documented experience in their field, they can come to Norway for sure as a skilled worker. It's not that easy though, actually. Here's the rundown of the requirements for getting a skilled worker visa in Norway. In terms of education, they must have completed vocational training in a program of at least 3 years. There must be a corresponding vocational training program in Norway, and then completed the education or degree from a university or college, or have special qualifications acquired through long professional experience. And when I say long, it should be a minimum of 6 years, possibly in combination with courses and education. The applicant must have as high competence as someone who has completed vocational education from upper secondary school here. Other requirements are: first, you must have received a concrete job offer from one specific employer in Norway. Second, the job must normally be full time. If you have been offered at least an 80% position, that will do. UDE will accept that. Third, the job you're offered must require qualifications as skilled worker. You must have the qualifications that the job requires. And lastly, the pay and working conditions must not be poorer than is normal in Norway.
That's interesting. But what would qualify as a skilled worker job?
Right. Good question, Renz. According to to a call one of our members made to UDE, the job would need explicitly state that the position requires a bachelor degree or technical certification that has equivalent in Norway, for example. That brings me to some special requirements for skilled worker visa application. First, there's this recognition or authorization. This is a requirement for jobs that require authorization, such as electrician, dentist, healthcare worker, pharmacist, or even taxi driver. If you are to work through a staffing agency, you must present a list of the assignments that the employer has planned for you. The assignments must be confirmed by the business or businesses you are carrying out assignments for. The staffing agency must be registered in the Norwegian Labor Inspection Authority's register.
Well, that was very informative, Amor. I think a lot of people now are kind of trying to figure out, where do I fit in here? And some of our viewers may actually be qualified for the skilled workers visa, and could be wondering how to find a job in Norway. So we have compiled here a list of websites we recommend for those who are looking for work, or want to come to Norway to work. So for those who are outside of Norway right now, there is workinnorway.no, jobbnorge.no, LinkedIn, and fin.no. These websites have job postings in English. And if you're looking for work from within Norway and already speak Norwegian or can understand Norwegian, we recommend NAV's arbeidsplassen.no and also fin.no, which have job postings in Norwegian. Other websites include jobzone.no and dreamwork.no. Have you ever tried any of these websites,
I
Amor?
did. I checked Fin that and no. Though Dreamwork, never heard it before actually. This is good.
Mhm. Yes. I'm more of an Arbeitsplassen
Mm.
person because
I
the
yeah.
mhm.
I think it's also because it depends on what field. you're
Mhm.
trying to target, no? Arbeidsplaisen, if I believe, has more of like the Barneyhage.
Mm.
Yeah, that's
I
what they
didn't
say.
know that. I prefer our Arbeitsplassen because I feel like they have filters, better filters than fin.no. So you
Mm-mm.
can really narrow down your search. So for me, who is already in Norway, I think Arbeitsplassen is good.
And
But
who already speaks B1 at B1 level Norwegian.
yes, so it's good. I'm not confused.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm confused, but I'm just like context clues. Which brings me actually to some students who are already in Norway, who are hopefully already speaking Norwegian at university level, so like B1, B2. For you students who are wondering how you can stay in Norway as skilled workers, we have also information on shifting from a study visa to work visa in Norway. So, if you are a citizen from outside of the EU or EEA or Switzerland and have completed your degree in Norway, you may get a residence permit to stay in Norway while you look for work. If you find a relevant job, of course, you can get a skilled workers visa. But for those who are still or who are at the end of their studies, you can apply for a job seekers visa. The requirements for a job seekers visa are that first, you must have a valid residence permit as a student. And if you're applying for a job seeker visa, you need to do this 1 month before your permit expires. And you must also have completed your degree or education in Norway. And this must be documented with a diploma or transcript of records. And if that's not available, you can get a document from your school stating that you have completed the requirements for your education, like you have submitted the thesis or have done the final exam. And last, you must document that you have at least 25,839 kroners per month or 310,070 kroners per year in your account or maybe in a job contract to cover the cost of living in Norway. No, I
Start
think
saving now.
yes, start saving now every month. Every month, start saving.
Mm-mm.
And for those who are thinking of taking their PhD in Norway, PhD candidates are normally considered as employees rather than as students in Norway. Hence, PhD opportunities are mainly advertised as jobs on websites such as jobbnorge.no. For those who want to become researchers in Norway, you can apply for a job seeker's visa for researchers. The requirements are that you must have a residence permit as a researcher with your own funds and apply before this permit expires. And you must have a residence permit as a skilled worker with an employer in Norway for being a researcher.
That's really useful, Renz. I'll be taking note of this. Before we move on to the next part of our DG seminar, let's take a short pause and enjoy this informative video from Team Newbie in Norway that will help you improve your Norwegian vocabulary and pronunciation skills.
Yes, I'm excited for that.
Let's see.
Uttaler du det? La oss øve på norsk uttale sammen. Vare. Jeg kjøpte en vare på butikken i går. Jeg kjøpte en vare på butikken i går. Være. Den ser ut til å være av god kvalitet. Den ser ut til å være av god kvalitet. Jeg kjøpte en vare på butikken i går. Den ser ut til å være av god kvalitet.
And we're back. Yeah. Are we okay? Hello, everyone again. I like that program, that new activity of Team Newbie in Norway. It reminds me to, okay, check your Norwegian.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. So even now, I'm still like confused about the vowel sounds. My I have to practice my jaw.
Yeah. It's very good. Nice. Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed that. FHS Health New and Utale Ponosh. And yeah, back to our topic. We have covered how to apply for a skilled workers visa and how to look for a job. Let's talk about the working conditions now in Norway. First, let's talk about salary. One thing that is different between Norway and the Philippines is that there is no general minimum wage in Norway. However, certain industries like the construction, cleaning, hospitality, and agriculture industries have sector specific minimum wages that apply to all workers in those sectors, regardless of union membership. We'll touch more about collective agreements and unions later. However, our viewers may ask, how will I know if my wage is competitive? You can check if your wage is competitive by first comparing it with wage statistical data. One example of this is through Statistics Norway or SSB or other third-party websites. And then second, referring to collective agreements if your industry is covered by one. And then talking with your boss or supervisor is always an option. This will allow you to gauge if your salary level is fair in light of your work performance.
I think the talk about salary is something some may struggle with, but getting feedback is always a good thing. Don't you think so, Amor?
I do. Yes, that's very important.
Yes, especially if you feel that you are doing a good job and even going above and beyond. Which brings us to working hours. If you are a workaholic, this might be important to note. Regarding working hours, you should expect that there are limits for how much you may work per 24-hour day and per week here in Norway. These limits are laid down in the country's Working Environment Act. So, in the Working Environment Act, the limits prescribed by the Act for normal working hours are 9 hours per 24 hours and 40 hours per 7 days. If you work shifts, nights, or Sundays, normal working hours are reduced to 38 or 36 hours a week. However, exemptions can be made depending on agreements between the employer and employee, the existence of a collective pay agreement, and permission from the Labor Inspection Authority. Statutory limits for working hours will still be observed in these cases. So, an example of this is if you have an agreement between the employer and employee wherein they agree that the work hour over the course of a year will be 10 hours per 24 hours and 48 hours per 7 days, which is more than the normal limit. There will still be a statutory limit of 50 hours of work per week. And in terms of time off, there are also rules for daily and weekly off duty periods. This is to ensure enough rest and leisure time for employees. Employees are entitled to a minimum of 11 hours of continuous off duty time per 24 hours and 35 hours of continuous off duty time per 7 days. The weekly number of leisure hours cannot be reduced.
How I appreciate how Norway implements these strict rules, because this really reflects how work-life balance is highly prioritized here. But I know that those, in higher positions like managers and senior roles with high degree of independence are exempt from this rule.
Yes, that's right. So don't be surprised if your manager is still working at midnight and you see them online on Slack or on the
Mm.
messaging, the team messaging app. But of course, whether they have the right to message you or not at those hours is debatable. Which brings us to workers' rights. So in Norway, employees are entitled to a minimum of 25 days holiday. This is obligatory, meaning employees are obliged to take holidays each year. Employees over the age of 60 receive an extra week, 6 working days extra, and some collective agreements may also provide more. In terms of the holiday pay, it is calculated on the basis of wages paid in the qualifying year, excluding payments to cover expenses for car travel, board, lodging, and the like. And employees are entitled to 10.2% of the basis on which the holiday pay is calculated. For employees who are over 60 years, they are entitled to extra holidays, and the rate rises by 2.3%. So both of us are living in Norway now, Amor, and we know that in the month of July, basically everyone is on holiday. Even
Yeah.
government processes slow down on these months due to the lack of employees working.
It's okay. It's fine with me as long as I'm on holiday too.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, anyone who has lived a few years in Norway knows this well. To newcomers, it might be surprising how nearly the whole country goes on holiday at the same time. But this is what the holiday pay is for. Instead of getting paid to go to work, you get paid to go on holiday.
Yes, that's what I like about Norway. The Norwegians take their holidays very seriously.
Correct.
But of course, as an employee, along with rights, you also have some obligations. And I believe we're now moving on in our discussion to that part.
Yes, that's right, Renz. As an employee, when you work in Norway, your employer deducts income tax directly from your salary, which is known as the withholding tax. To become a registered taxpayer, you must first obtain a tax deduction card or skattekort from Skattetaten and file a tax return or skattemelding annually, usually by March or April. And then after submission, a tax assessment is processed, wherein you shall receive a tax assessment notice where you can see how much money you will receive, or it's called tax refund, or how much you still have to pay or underpaid tax. If you overpay your taxes, you may be due for a tax refund. I think everyone hopes for this one. Of course, it feels like a surprise savings you get back in April or May from the tax authority.
Yes, so suddenly you have an extra thousand or so of in your account, and this can be good to send back to family, or maybe treat yourself to a new spring outfit, or put away for a nice summer vacation.
Yeah,
And
mine
this
was
is
gone.
oof, oofta next year, hopefully.
Yeah.
But going back to the tax payment, this is why it's important that you have a good idea about how much you should be paying in taxes, because actually I think you are the one who will have a final say if your taxes were correct. You have to like confirm to Skattetaten that this is
Yeah,
correct,
they
therefore,
they
yeah.
give you a timeline, yeah, so to report back.
Yeah, so you have to have some knowledge of whether the tax that you have paid is correct, and if you should actually get a refund. Yes. And which brings us to how can we pay taxes in Norway as a foreign worker? So you can choose between two ways of paying tax: through the payee scheme or under general tax rules. Most foreign workers automatically become part of the payee scheme if they have short work stays in Norway, or if it's their first year living in Norway. The payee scheme imposes a 25% rate on gross income. So if you're earning 10,000, that means at the end of the month you have to pay 2,500 kroners in taxes. And however, if you opt for the general tax rules, a flat tax rate of 22% will apply and will change based on how much you earn during the taxable year. The two factors that determine tax rate is the total amount to be earned, your income, and applicable deductions. You can use the official government tax calculator to determine your tax rate. We have the link to that on our slide.
Yeah, you mentioned that the tax changes based on how much you earn. In relation to this, we should also discuss Norway's progressive tax. Yeah, so in Norway, a bracket tax, it's a type of progressive tax. It's imposed in addition to the general tax on those who earn high incomes. Calculation of the bracket tax is based on personal income before deductions. There on the screen, you can see the bracket tax applicable for 2025. It is important to note that you only pay the higher rate on the income within that bracket, not your whole income. So I think a lot are confused about this, even myself. So we will give an example. If someone earns 1.2 million kroners annually, they must pay first a general income tax of 22%, which was mentioned earlier. And then second, a tax depending on which brackets their income covers, which is this bracket tax. In simple terms, the bracket tax of those who earn 1.2 million kroners is not 16.4% additional tax, which is around 192,000 kroners. But in reality, it's only around 8.12%, which is 97,500 kroners.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned this, Amor. Even I am confused about this. Maybe our accounting people can explain the math to us. But for this bracket tax, I know that some people are afraid of getting promoted, for example, or getting higher pay because they worry that they would be taxed so much.
That's right. Yeah, of course, that's totally understandable, Renz. Everyone wants to have more money at the end of the day to spend as they please. However, it is the taxes that we pay that fund the country's social welfare system, and Norway is known to have a very good one. For example, I like reading this list. Norway has one of the longest parental leaves in the world and generous sick leave policies, which brings us to the next part of our discussion. Workers in Norway have a right to the following types of leaves. First, sick leave of up to 1 year with medical certification called sickmeldi, paid by employer for the first 16 days, then by NAV. And then pregnancy leave of up to 12 weeks during pregnancy. And then fathers get 2 weeks also, 2 weeks leave at childbirth to assist the mother. Adoptive or foster parents also get 2 weeks leave when assuming care of a child or not for stepchildren or children over 15. Then mothers get a mandatory 6 weeks maternity leave after birth unless a medical certificate indicates that returning to work is better for the mother's health. When it comes to general parental leave, parents in Norway are entitled to up to 12 months total. Parents can get 49 weeks with 100% coverage or 61 weeks and 1 day with 80% coverage. So each parent can take up to 12 additional months immediately after, if not on partial leave. And then you also get to leave when you're breastfeeding. So breastfeeding moms also get paid time off for nursing, which is 1 hour a day during the first year if working. If they're working 7 or more hours a day. And then parents are also entitled to leave to care for a sick child, attend medical visits, or if childminder is unavailable. Employees are also entitled to educational leave of up to 3 years for vocational or continuing education if they have been employed for 3 or more years, or 2 years if they have been working with the same employer. There are also leaves for military or national service, public duty attendance, and religious holidays.
Wow, these are,
Amazing.
yes, a lot and very generous leaves, like you said, Amor. And Of course, these kinds of good working conditions are characteristic of Norway as a social welfare state. But another factor that has helped shape Norway's good working environment is the country's culture of union participation, which we'll talk about now. So, approximately 50% of employees in Norway are members of a trade union or labor organization. For people coming from countries with low union participation, like the Philippines, for example, where we only have union density of 6.5%, this can be surprising, especially when you come into work and find half or more of your coworkers are gone because there is an ongoing strike and you weren't informed because you're not the member of the union. But of course, these strikes, typically the last resort in pressing for demands in an agreement, are a way that employees who are in unions express their sentiments and participate in the two-way discussion that affects their working environment. And of course, this aspect of Norwegian working life facilitates employee participation and democracy in the workplace. And I think recently I saw that Norway is one of the most, democratic countries in the world.
For
So
sure.
yeah, so this open participation in, communicate, open participation in shaping society, shaping
Mm,
their country. I think it's a big deal here. And for, yeah, individual employees, because of this, individual employees have the right to be heard and to participate in organizing their own workstation. Through their trade unions, employees take part in these discussions.
right. That's right. That's right. Unions play a big role in shaping Norwegian workplaces. For those who are unfamiliar with unions, we'll discuss what a labor or trade union is. So, yeah, unions are organizations made of workers within a specific job or industry. So, unions create a bridge of communication between employers and their employees, ensuring the democratic participation, as Renz mentioned, between the two parties in creating a good working environment. The main job of unions is to represent and protect the interests of its members. This involves negotiating pay and other rights with employers. These rights could be working hours, holidays, and the right to on the job training. The most important task of a trade union is to negotiate on behalf of its members. When negotiations conclude, agreements are written that employers and employees are obliged to comply with. If the parties fail to reach an agreement, the employees are entitled to go on strike until an agreement is reached. In the earlier parts of our discussion today, we had talked about collective agreements affecting wages, working hours, and leaves. It is unions that play a big role in creating these agreements that are used as standards in setting working conditions. In Norway, the biggest unions are LO, or the Norwegian Confederation of Trade Unions, UNIO, or the Confederation of Unions for Professionals, YS, the Confederation of Vocational Unions, and Akademikan, the Federation of Norwegian Professional Associations.
And in addition to what you mentioned, Amor, other benefits of member union membership include saving on insurance and access to a salary calculator and statistics, which can be used to assess if you are getting paid a competitive wage. Unions can also provide free legal help to its members. For labor immigrants, it is possible to join unions. However, fewer immigrants join compared to their Norwegian counterparts. Of course, the reason for this vary from person to person, but mainly issues that union organizers face in getting immigrants to join unions are language barriers, cultural aspects such as a brought-in respect for the hierarchy in workplaces from their culture, and some immigrants are even surprised at the level of cooperation between employers and employees at Norwegian workplaces. Also, many labor immigrants are not familiar with unions from their home country, and therefore they have little understanding of what it means to be a union member. Others even have negative experiences and fear that a union membership might lead to retaliation from the employer. So, yeah, what do you think about the low participation of immigrant workers in unions, Amor?
I understand that because I myself is not part of the union, and I haven't thought of joining one because maybe I think it's because I trust the Norwegian process that much that I feel safe. I'm employed
Mhm.
now, and I feel safe with my employer and the Norwegian process and the NAV. I know I can report to NAV anytime. But yeah, of course, being in a union is would still work good for you when the time comes, something happens in between. You never know. You really never know. Yeah, so
Mhm.
I can definitely understand the reasoning of some migrant workers. And of course, a lot of them come here only for a short period of time as seasonal workers, or they're really not here to settle in Norway. This, according to our research, is also a reason why they don't bother to join unions. However, those who do stay long term tend to look more positively towards union membership. So, yeah, next we'll discuss what it's like working as an immigrant in Norway. We'll tackle some important rules about renewing residence permits, what to do in case you lose your job, and where to get help if you are facing issues at work.
Yes, so I think for now we'll play a video for our viewers.
Ye- Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
we'll get
let's
some
do
water
that.
break as well. See you
See
in a bit.
you.
Et kjøkken, en kjøkkenbenk, en komfyr, et kjøkkenskap, en vaskemaskin, et kjøleskap, en vask, et soverom, en seng, en dyne, en pute, et nattbord, et vindu, en stue, en sofa, en TV-benk, en lampe, et stuebord, et rullegardin.
All right.
I didn't know there's a Norwegian for blinds at Rulegatin. Okay, that's nice to know. Okay, so yeah, we're back once again. That video was brought to you by Team Newbie in Norway's sub-team Experienced. So back to our topic. So what is it like working as an immigrant in Norway? Let's say you have gotten a job and are on your way or are now working in Norway. So first, you will probably find that your residence permit needs to be renewed either every year or every 3 years. That is because the duration of the residence permit you are able to get depends on the position you have been offered. So, let's say if the position requires that you have completed a vocational training program at upper secondary school level, you can get a residence permit for up to 1 year at a time. But if the position requires that you have completed an education or degree from a university or college, you can normally get a residence permit for up to 3 years at a time. So after 3 years, you can apply for a permanent residence permit in Norway. Your family can usually apply to come and live with you in Norway while you are working here. So if your family members apply at the same time as you will receive the answer to your applications at the same time. So we advise submitting your papers together.
That's good advice. And our viewers may also be wondering, what if I want to change employers? Do I have to go through the whole application process all over again? So fear not, because we have also found out the answer to that. So if you are a migrant worker and you want to change employers later on, but you will be working in the same type of position as you were originally hired for, you actually don't need to apply for a new residence permit. So, given that the pay and working conditions are not inferior to what is normal in Norway, and you still meet the requirements for your residence permit as a skilled worker with an employer in Norway. However, if you are later going to start in a new position, you must apply for a new residence permit, no matter if you are staying with the same employer or changing employers. So you cannot start in a new type of position until you have been given a new residence permit. So, in case you lose your job, you must first notify the police where you live within 7 days that you have lost your job. You can then stay in Norway for up to 6 months to look for a new job. Your residence permit must still be valid for the duration of this period. It's important to note that you are not allowed to work remotely unless it is part of the job you have been granted a residence permit to do. Next, in terms of residence permit concerns when you lose your job, if the new job you find is similar to the one you lost, you don't need to apply for a new residence permit. But you must still notify the police where you live within 7 days after you start the new job. However, if your new job is in a different position, you must reapply for a residence permit.
Yeah, I know that a lot of migrant workers worry and are confused about this. So it's good to know that if you lose your job or are thinking of changing employers, you don't need to go through the whole application process all over again if you will basically be working in the same position. So I think confusion about rules and regulations as well as awareness of their rights are a big source of worry for many migrant workers in Norway, which puts them in a vulnerable position. This is not something that the Norwegian government or society is unaware of. In fact, there is a term for this. It's called social dumping. The term social dumping refers to the practice of giving workers, and particularly migrant workers, significantly poorer wage and employment conditions than Norwegian workers. But what we must keep in mind is that rules on health, safety, and the work environment apply to everyone who works in Norway, and the Working Environment Act also applies to foreign workers.
I agree with what you said wholeheartedly, Amor. It can be difficult and confusing coming to an unknown country as a migrant worker, as you and I both know, probably.
Mhm.
So, we are doing this seminar, of course, to help our fellow migrants familiarize themselves with the Norwegian working environment, especially their rights. And while we at FHS would love to help migrant workers facing difficult situations at their workplace, we refer such cases to organizations that have more expertise and capacities to help in this situation. As such, we have listed organizations that can help migrant workers who are unfamiliar with their rights or are facing issues at their workplace. Amor, could you help me list them out?
Sure, Renz. I'll start. First, we have two agencies that help migrant workers understand their rights and how to establish themselves as workers in Norway. So it's the Arbeidstilsynet, or the Norwegian Labor Inspection Authority, which is responsible for supervising the implementation of the Working Environment Act, the Annual Holidays Act, and the National Holidays Act. Then next is the Service Center for Foreign Workers, or SUA. At SUA Police, the Tax Administration, and the Labor Inspection Authority will help you sort out everything you need to work in Norway. But before coming to SUA, you need to book an appointment. We have their website on our screen right now, so you can check them out.
Yes. And for those in a more complicated situation that require legal assistance, there is Caritas, a non government organization that offers free guidance and legal assistance in matters relating to labor law, human trafficking, and other legal issues, such as wage theft, threats, violations of the Working Environment Act, and the General Provisions Act. They have all offices all over Norway, and we also have their contact details on the screen. There is also legal counseling for women, Juridisk rådgivning for kvinner, an organization mainly run by law students that provides customized legal help free of charge to anyone who defines themselves as women. Their contact information is also on the screen. Of course, you can also get help from your union because, as we mentioned, they provide free legal assistance to their members. All right. Well, Amor, I think that was the last part of our discussion today. We have covered a lot.
Yes, that's a lot. I hope our viewers have taken down notes and, of course, gotten the information they were looking for. If you found our discussion today helpful, do leave a comment in the comment sections or give this video a like. And if you'd like to be a volunteer, you can learn more about the Filipino Helping Society in Norway, or FHS, through our website www.fhsnorge.org. So on our website, you can also find the regular and upcoming activities related to integration and charity work.
Yes, we'd actually like to take this time to promote FHS and Team Newbie in Norway's upcoming activities. On June 10, we will be having a Digi seminar about living with HIV in Norway in partnership with HIV Norge. Also, we have an upcoming digital Språk Cafe on June 14 at 11 a.m. So, yeah, if you'd like to practice your Norwegian with us, we'd love to see you at our Språk Cafe. And to stay updated on our activities, simply like and follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/fhs.org.no. With that, I think we have pretty much covered everything now, Amor. I think it's time for us to say goodbye to our viewers.
Yes, Renz, on behalf of the Philippinske Hjelpsamfund i Norge, FHS, I would like to thank the great people who put a lot of effort in preparing for this program. Our researchers, Melrich Sanchez, Christine Bokkang, and Renz. Thank you, and for co-hosting this Digi seminar today with me. And of course, to all our viewers for watching this program and making it as productive as possible.
Yes, thank you so much for the privilege of co hosting this program with you, Amor. Always a pleasure to do this with you. But for now, ha det allesammen. God helg.
Go ahead.
Ha det.
Ha det.